Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to world this morning. I'm your host Hajra, Satti, and joining me is my wonderful co-host who happens to be Muzzammil. Assalamu alaikum Muzzammil. How are you doing today?
Alaikum assalam. Doing great, and what an episode that we've organized for our viewers today.
That's very true, and today happens to be 5th of November. It's an interesting day because there are lots of developments unfolding. We are going to have a conversation further on that, but before that we are also going to shed a light about the World Tsunami Awareness Day. So there was a very big tsunami that hit in 2004 in the Indian Ocean, which engulfed lots of areas of that particular site. So on December 26, 2004, an earthquake in the Indian Ocean caused a devastating tsunami that tragically claimed the lives of around 230,000 people and affected 14 countries. The event marked the first major global disaster of the 21st century and remained one of the most deadliest in the recent history. The lessons learned by survivors, such as recognizing the warning signs of a tsunami and the importance of seeking high ground, have been ingrained in their memories. However, as we approach the 20th anniversary of the disaster, a new generation who either experienced it at a very young age or were born after the event can benefit from these lessons that the older survivors have learned. This year's World Tsunami Awareness Day theme aligns with the International Day for the Disaster Risk Reduction and the Summit of the Future, focusing on the youth and the future generations. The activities planned for the observance aim to commemorate 20th anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami by passing the lessons on to the new generation of children and youth. So obviously, we have to be very much aware of what are the risks that are posed, and especially now the climate change is into the equation, how we can further prepare ourselves for such sort of natural calamities.
Now you see, actually, when this calamities of such sort take place, they are our Earth's warning, our planet's warning to the people to conduct themselves and their lives properly. There are things that we consume, there are resources from this Earth that we consume, and it's our responsibility to give back to our planet in just the way that the planet gives back to us. Otherwise, such calamities such as floods and tsunamis will take place, and they will affect adversely the vegetation, the crops, the agricultural sector.
Absolutely. Now moving on to another very interesting story. So Muzzammil, why don't you take the lead and tell us that how a dog has accidentally started the kitchen fire by turning on the toaster in the UK.
This is an interesting one. And on a lighter note, a dog, his name was actually Herbie, and he accidentally triggered a serious kitchen fire. And this kitchen fire was started because of him jumping onto the countertop and switching on the toaster. The BBC reported, and Herbie escaped the blaze in Margaret with the family's 12-year-old son, while the firefighters had to rescue the family cat. And family cat's name was Mush. Well, this story of Herbie and Mush, he was found unconscious between two pillows, the cat. And the cat was resuscitated with a pet oxygen mask. Now, the Kent Fire and Rescue Service reported that they have responded to 28 kitchen fires caused by pets. This is a warning of a sort for all of you all who leave their pets open in the house, that mischievous pets can lead to negative things.
True. And now moving on to, since it happens to be 5th of November, it's a very important day, especially in the American history, because today the pollings have started, and to further elaborate on them, in the final day before the US presidential elections and the last opportunity for the candidates to deliver their pitch to the voters, polls continue to show that Democratic candidate and Republican candidate are both neck to neck, both nationally and in the most swing states. So in order to further elaborate the intricacies of the American electoral system, how does the voting system work out for the people, and how does it further translate into the people's representation in the House of the Power, we have a very interesting report developed by our correspondent Annum Abbasi. Let's go and take a look.
The United States presidential elections are around the corner to determine who will be the president and vice president for the following 4-year term. In total, 59 elections have been held since 1789, and 40 of the 46 presidents have been elected this way. Since 1824, most states have adopted a winner-take-all approach to presidential elections, where electors cast all ballots for the statewide winner of the popular vote. The total number of electoral votes grew as the US expanded over time. And since 1964, there have been a total of 538 electoral votes on offer. Therefore, candidates need a majority of 270 votes to win the elections outright. US politics is dominated by two parties, Democrats and Republicans. Potential candidates emerging from either party for the presidential nominations. This year, the Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris is contesting the elections against former Republican President Donald Trump. Trump leads on economic and immigration issues, while Harris has an advantage on political extremism. The presidential elections hold a special significance as the two primary candidates contesting for the electoral process have a unique history. Kamala Harris, if elected, will be the first female president of United States of America who originates from the three different ethnicities, African, Indian, and American. On the other hand, if elected, former President Donald Trump will be the first president elected twice after losing the previous elections. US presidential elections are a hot topic of discussion throughout the world. Who will win the presidential elections, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? For more updates, stay tuned. This is Annum Abbasi from PTV World.
Right, and like Annum Abbasi mentioned that there are two parties who are dominating the American elections, but now in this election, the conversation has changed, and that too by the Arab American voters. So, Assalamu alaikum, Annum, and thank you so much for joining us, and please update us about the American elections and especially how Muslim vote in the three swing states, Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia, is essential in shaping the outcome of this elections of 2024.
Thank you very much, Hajra, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the most debatable topic for today, Trump versus Kamala. I would like to add to what has been my research and what has been the speculations in the market, in the discussion of the election. So basically, Muslims are expressing a very strong dissatisfaction with primarily both the parties over the Palestinian and Gaza war, because so far both the candidates have not given any clarity of when the bombing is going to stop. And since you know that Muslims have very strong affiliation with the brothers and sisters in Gaza, so this is actually bringing a change in their voting system as well and their perspective of which candidates to be selected. So the foreign policy also plays an important role and primary role for the selection of both the candidates, whether it's Kamala or Trump. Reeling from trauma of Israel's war on Gaza and Lebanon, the community members are still facing the impossible choices to elect between Harris and Trump. So there is still a lot of speculations about that. However, since American Muslims have a very strong majority, so let's see who is going to win this. But the speculations and their apprehensions are valid for bombing, whether it will be stopped, whether the ceasefire will happen. So Gaza and Lebanon both plays a very strong role in deciding which candidate will eventually run the elections. So that's about it.
Right, and as we earlier saw, Donald Trump refusing to put up with any debates. The first one that he had with Kamala Harris, he decided not to come up to any debates with Kamala Harris again, and that stirred some public ruckus between the followers of both the parties. Now, as their presidential campaigns come to an end and the voting begins, what is the overall public sentiment in the general public regarding these elections and the parties that they support?
So basically, like I said earlier as well, that since Muslim sentiments are primarily connected with the wars which are still going on, and no force has intervened or played any role to bring peace in the disputed territories, so that is going to be their deciding role. However, Kamala is contesting for this election with this edge of having three different ethnicities, while Trump is going to be perhaps the only president who will contest twice for this election if he becomes the president. So it is a mix of emotions and a decision for basically, actually a test for the Muslim Americans at this point. So let's see, because the majority of them are selecting for a third party, which is the Green Party, and they are actually wanting to go for that party instead of making these two candidates. They are more inclined towards that third party. So we are just waiting for more results to come in, and as soon as there will be a major, 270 votes for any candidate, we will incline to which candidate holds more strong position for the win.
Right, Annum. So let's also talk about and center a conversation around the third party which you mentioned, and which is the Green Party, and the presidential nominee is Dr. Jill Stein, and vice presidential nominee is Dr. Bilal Butchway. How much do you think the Muslim protest vote, which they're not giving to both of these parties because we have seen their stances on Gaza, is going to translate into that momentum? Because do you feel that the duopoly, the monopoly, or rather duopoly of the Democrats and Republicans will be ended? There are cracks in the system, and the Green Party has become a conversation of the mainstream. It's not in fringes right now. What is your analysis on that?
You know what? It is for the first time ever in U.S. history that there has been a third party where the Muslims of America and the Arab Muslims are more inclined to. And the primary voters are there are the students who have been, not allowed to do the protests for different rallies, and they have been snubbed. So there's a lot of rage in the Muslim community already. So let's see, they are more inclined towards this third party. And in the primary three states, the third party has more stronger position than the other two candidates. So that is giving them an extra edge over Trump and Kamala. And let's cross the fingers and see who will win by this end.
Right. Thank you so much, Annum, for joining us and for shedding the light on the current US elections. And obviously, as the results come in, we are going to further develop this conversation. So in order to further elaborate the electoral system, which has puzzled so many people because it's very complex, our reporter from New York, Manhattan, Jawad Tehami, reports, and he talks about, and he has talked to the representative of the Board of the Elections, and she also happens to be the coordinator at the polling station in the New York, Susan, about how the early elections are unfolding. So Jawad, thank you so much, and what are the details that you have? Right. Right, so we are connecting with Jawad, and obviously he has taken Suzanne on the board to talk about the early voting system and the election in the New York State.
How is it going? How's been this early voting going on?
It is terrific. We are so thrilled with the turnout. We had expected one of the higher turnouts for a presidential election, but this is record. And it's wonderful. People are getting out and voting.
Okay, so how is the procedure like? Is it very simple, easy to understand for general public?
It is. We have a process where we have the voters in, we check their registrations, we give them a ballot, they mark the ballot, and then they scan the ballot into the machine themselves.
Okay, so there is a privacy booth as well, because
yes.
It's a secret ballot,
The
right?
voters have privacy while they're marking their ballot so that we don't see it and other members of the public do not see their ballot.
Okay, so when specifically talking about this polling station, what is the description of it? It is in New York City on 5th Avenue.
Yes,
Right,
this is one of the early voting poll sites, and we have a set number of voters who are assigned to use this site. This happens to be a beautiful site at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on 5th Avenue in the 80s, and we are set up to handle a large number of voters.
Wonderful. So how many number of registered voters are here in this particular station? How many you are catering?
I am not able to give you that number.
Okay, so when we specifically talk about the results, so that result is going to come out after the November 5th poll, right?
Yes, the final day of voting, we have 9 days of early voting, then 1 day off Monday, and then the regular election day is Tuesday, November 6th. Initial results will be given the night of the 6th, but the official results, the certified election results, will be given within 2 weeks after that. And that makes sure all the ballots from around the world, the mail-in, the military, etc., are counted and processed.
Right. So if we talk about specifically about the ballot paper, how does it look like?
The ballot itself this time is two sides. On the front side, we have the candidates who are being contested. On the rear side, we have 6 ballot initiatives which New York City voters get to vote on this time.
Okay, so if by any chance, if there happens to be any sort of a mistake, how that can be rectified?
The Board of Elections has planned for that, and we allow the voter to make several errors in filling in their ballot. The machine which scans it is set up to help the voter recognize any errors, such as marking too big or marking for too many candidates, and the voter gets the chance to whatever issue a new ballot or to just not vote for that particular person.
That
Right, and these were the U.S. elections reports that we have, and it's a very interesting election that is developing, and I think the conversation will further unfold when we are going to witness where the results turn into, and obviously that requires a day or two. So yes, Muzzammil, you were saying something.
That was Jawad Tehami talking to the coordinator of the polling station, and electoral process and the early elections were also being discussed. It's also important to mention that how certain situations were controlled, as we saw that vandals were setting fire to ballot papers and the post boxes and all. So the overall situation, Jawad, how is it? Well, could you give a general recap regarding, like Ms. Susan said, that the official results would be released 2 weeks after. So what is the overall take on the election situation, the early votes, and how the votes are floating in, and how it will be concluded 2 weeks after?
Wonderful day here in New York City, Manhattan, and I'm standing here at the New York Metropolitan Museum, the southern end on the 5th Avenue. You can see there are people who are coming in to cast their ballot through the early voting system. We've been covering this particular polling station since morning, and we have seen hundreds of people who have already come over here and they have cast their ballots. Now, this early voting system is designed so that people can actually vote earlier so that it saves time. So basically millions of people have already cast their ballot through this early voting system. So let me explain this particular method, how a voter goes into a particular polling station and how he or she basically casts that particular ballot to choose a favorite candidate. So once the voter comes in, he or she is guided towards a certain desk over which the representatives of the Directorate of the Election Commission are present. They verify online the names and the addresses of the particular voters. Once that verification happens, the representative then goes on towards another machine. That machine is designed to, give that ballot paper. So the officer over there, after the online verification, gets that ballot paper from the machine, which is printed from both the sides. On one side, there are symbols and the candidates. Then when the voter takes that particular ballot paper, they take it to the privacy booth, which are white, and there's happens to be an American flag over those privacy booths. After choosing the favorite candidate, the voter goes towards another machine which is used for the submission of those ballot papers. In that way, the voters, after choosing their favorite candidates, submit their ballot papers into another machine. That is how this particular voting goes.
Right, and thank you so much, Jawad, for explaining the very intricate system of the American Electoral College and how the votes is translated further into the people or the representatives who will further sit in the Capitol Hill and occupy the power corridor. So in a very interesting development, Princess Elizabeth Island, an artificial island, is being constructed about 45 kilometers off the Belgian coast with the house which will house a mega electricity project. Oh wow, the project, first of its kind, aims at the harvest the fast flowing of the offshore winds. Upon a completion, it will add an estimated 3.5 gigawatts of the power to the Belgian grids and power an estimated 3 million houses. Projects such as this make the carbon neutrality seems like a realistic goal, and I think we need to have more such sort of conversation, especially because of the climate change. Especially we see how climate change is has made the earth vulnerable to its very pernicious sort of the side effects that we are witnessing, and we as a humanity need to come together and talk about it. So nowadays, Muzzammil, as we see that there are lots of young couples, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about marriages, what are the complications that are involved in that? I generally do see that the balance has changed. So for example, in our parents' generation, it was more of a formal relationship in terms of that they were not tilted towards best friend sort of a relationship. But now I do feel the younger couples, they tend towards go towards this best friend sort of a relationship, in which was husband and wife have equal sort of a participation in the decision making affairs. But I also feel that there are lots of terms around the corners, especially in the Western world, and especially since you see a lot of diffusion which is happening towards our part of the country in terms of the spiritual intimacy, the concepts of the twin flames, the concept of the soulmates and of the karmic partners. How does these conversation factors into the younger people's choice for the partnership, or when we talk about the marriage relationship or marital decisions, and how can marriage experience a more healthier and harmonious balance? To talk upon that, we are glad that we have invited someone who has a very jolly personality. She has a very outgoing personality. She loves traveling, and I do feel that she has a very distinct personality from her husband. So how is she having a very harmonious sort of a relationship? We want her to unveil the secrets of a successful marriage, and both of them are doctors, working doctors, right? So how are they balancing their work-life balance? We are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Rubia Usman. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Rubia, and thank you so much for once again joining our show.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys again. Thank you.
Yes. So, Dr. Rubia, you have a very distinct personality. You have a very soulful personality, and I do feel that Dr. Usman has another distinct personality, and yet you have a very healthier sort of a relationship. Unlock the secrets of that divineness in your relationship.
He's never going to agree to this. He's going to be like laughing his head off right now as he watches your show. No, so the thing is this, that I think we are friends. So that's one of the things, that we're both really good friends. We fight, we do fight, there's no doubt about that.
Oh,
but we sort of have way of mirroring each other in a way as well, which is really sad and fun as well, because what happens when you get married, we've been married for 15 years now. So when we've been married for more than a decade, ultimately what happens is that partners, I feel, start reflecting each other. So they start even looking like each other in certain ways, isn't it? Which can be good, exactly, which can be good in some ways, because aadat ho jati and you have certain characteristic traits, so you know how not to get into a fight. You know when you can just pull back in time, because this will cause issues.
Right.
But having said that, what comes with companionship, and this is the thing I wanted to stress upon, that a lot of people marry thinking that the wedding or the shadi is it.
Right.
Yeah, wo shuru ka honeymoon time is it. But the fun comes afterwards.
Okay.
That's what I tell everyone. That I think after 2 or 3 years of marriage, that's when your teething problems have ironed out. You kind of have a stable relationship, and that's when the fun starts.
Right. Dr. Rubia, we also witness especially the newer sort of conversation that young people are now having, right? And I want to touch the concept of spiritual intimacy, right? The concept of the twin flames, right? And I do see that a lot of people, and especially younger people, I don't know, for the lack of better word, they're attracting all sort of negative or wrong energies in the name of the twin flame, right? How do you iron out such sort of conversation for younger people? Because in the garb of that, they are making not very nice fancy decision.
So a few things have happened as time has evolved. So what man has done over time is that inclusivity and diversity has become a thing now.
Right.
While that's great and it's amazing, but what's also happened is that experimentation can go a little bit too much to an extreme. And as a result of that, people almost kind of forget themselves.
Right.
They're so hard bent on trying to find themselves that they forget the real, there's a 9 to 5 self and there's a 5 to 9 self. So there are different parts to us. We're not like one box. We don't have one personality if you think about it. Our personality changes throughout a day. One person is a different person in a 24-hour day. So what's happening with couples is that they're either rushing into relationships. Now that is always a big no-no in my opinion. As much as you want the spark to be there and you want that instant connection, but you also want to build like a good communication. You want to also see that can you talk to each other, and how are you when you're not talking? How's the silence? Can you stay with each other and not do anything? I mean, life is all fun and games if you're always traveling and having a good time. But after that, you have to come home. And then you have to cook, and then you have to do laundry, and then you have to look after the kids. So that is also part of who you are. So if you're not comfortable with each other's space, and the only way to find that out is through time.
Right.
Rushing into a relationship over a period of days to weeks, or having very few, which I think a lot of people might disagree, but too little contact can often lead to issues.
Right.
I think I'm of the school of thought that yes, let the spark be there, but then become friends and build a healthy relationship.
Okay.
Well, I would like to ask about young men out there. They're very, the kind of economy that we have and the kind of world that we are living in today. People are very concerned with their progress in life. Men, women, girls, boys, they're very concerned. But at the same time, we have that human instinct of interacting with somebody in a way that
Right.
they are your forever person,
Yeah.
right? So in a world that does not allow you the time to adopt such a lifestyle and then to have wishes to become a part of such a lifestyle, and this is from both the ends. My wife's a doctor and I work in the news industry. I also work in the real estate industry. So I am a very busy person throughout my day.
Never have any time.
And my wife, when she comes home, she has had plenty of human interaction all throughout her day, right?
And she's like shutting down. She's like, nobody talk to me, I've had enough.
Both of us have had enough of the day when we see each other. And when we're leaving for work in the morning, we're all fresh, but we don't have time for each other.
Exactly.
So how can young couples, can young people cope with that, manage with that? Because say 20, 30 years back when my parents were getting married, things were different.
Yeah.
My mother was a doctor, but she never worked.
Yeah.
My dad was a businessman. He earned, the family was happy.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be for young people?
So one thing that I think works really well for us, at least I can say, I mean I can't generalize, is that we take time off every so often just to unwind and just disconnect from the real world.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I agree. A lot of people will say, "Okay, this is like a Amiro ka chonchla." You know, a holiday is a luxury. But what I have learned over the years is a holiday doesn't have to be a luxury. It doesn't have to be an expensive, luxurious holiday which ticks all the boxes, that you go to the tallest peak and you see the deepest river and you know, you do all the perfect Insta-worthy pictures.
Yes.
It can literally be just a week off, you know, at a friend's house somewhere like in the mountains or something. I mean, something local, something within the country, something which is half an hour from your house maybe even. But it's apart from your normal activity in your normal day. So you're not getting up at like normal time, alarm nahi lagawa, you're not making the nashta, sending kids to school, and then finding time to connect with each other. You may get sick of each other. There's a good chance of that. When you realize that you have so much time, you may be like, oh my God, I don't really like this person anymore. And that does happen sometimes because Usman slept half of our holidays, so he will sleep and I'll be like, oh, let's go here, let's go there. So
you're super energetic and you know, he
so
wants
he's
to
going
relax.
to be like, we need to relax. We came here to relax. And I'm like, I am relaxing. This is me relaxing. So yes, it does get like that. The other thing what I think you mentioned, and I love that first bit, I think young couples are really aware nowadays that they have to realize that it's a two-way relationship. Both partners have to be contributing equally, emotionally, financially, physically. This is very important. A lot of people have realized now that it's not the time that, you know, you say, okay, I'm just going to marry someone and he's going to look after me, he's going to pay for everything, and I'm going to be a kept wife. Unfortunately, we can't afford that anymore.
All right, really quickly, when your partner has down days, how can you make them feel comfortable?
Give them space. Know what gives them joy. That usually really helps. Some people like to be quiet and alone, and some people like to be distracted from their problems. So you will know with time what works for them. For me, food always works.
Right.
Oh, really? Because you have a very toned down sort of a body. I think you work a lot. But Dr. Rubia, you mentioned a very important point in the undercurrents of the conversation, which is the concept of space and silence, right? So when you are married, especially in South Asian communities, you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying the family, right? And I think the concept of the space is not a very well-defined one in our families, because if you are asking space, you know, they will be like, Desi families will be like, you know, you are not allowed, and this is very rude, and you know, she's exerting herself and she's not into us, and you know, you feel all sort of that. How do you also convince that and live and navigate, you know, that space and the concept of the silence? Because you know, you obviously, for me, I need a big part of the me time that recharges me up. If I don't get it, you know, I usually become very cranky about it.
No, so this is tough even for me. So since I've just moved back into an extended family game, so I kid you not, it's really tough. So between your parents-in-law, your friends, your extended family, you're kind of like split into almost 100 pieces.
True.
And that's not physically possible if you think about it.
Yes.
And I think everybody's feeling it.
Yes.
So even the people who are pushing you to have those social interactions, even they're feeling the pinch.
Because we're busy, you know, we're working, you know, you cannot survive without working, and when you go home, you don't have the time to, you know, spare for your extended family, or, you know, for that matter, immediate family too, right?
So Monday to Friday, so most people work 5 days a week.
Right.
If you work 6, that's even worse. But 5 days a week, you are constantly on the get-go. The only time you're at home is the time when you're sleeping, eating, and just probably 2 hours apart from that. So if you think about it, most people are only spending about 10 hours in a week just unwinding during a weekday. So when the weekend comes, it's perfectly normal and perfectly natural to say, you know what, I don't want to see anyone.
Yes.
You know what, I just want to stay in my pajamas, I just want to look really ugly and like, you know, just watch TV maybe or eat maybe or maybe catch up with my activities that I couldn't do during the week. I know that if I go out on a Saturday, my Sunday will be horrific because I'll have to prepare for the next week. So I have to do all my laundry, I have to get all the kids' uniforms ready. So I think reality check is very important. Don't push yourself so much to that point that you can't do it anymore and then you erupt. Because that's never going to be productive either.
Wow, that is a sudden realization of a small truth that life used to be about you working on the outside and coming home to live your life. Now, we just come back to dress up and go back to the life that is outside the house.
So true.
About what you just mentioned, how can one catch oneself burning out? How can one catch oneself that I am now, my brain is now overstimulated? How can I catch myself when I'm entering that zone?
So I think we're the saddest generation from this perspective. We are constantly overstimulated. We have TV, we have social media, we have our own work, we have our own life, we have our own family. So we have 5 different elements that are constantly pulling at us. Even when we're unwinding, we have the phone. So we're still not really unwinding, are we? Because we're still engaging. We're seeing something social, something political, something that might really upset us, something that might make us feel better. I think the most important aspect is that you need nature. So I love exercising, as Hajra knows. You need to find nature and exercise. These are the 2 things that help me center myself. Because that is one true time that I'm not interacting with anyone except for my own self and my own thoughts. So if you're running in nature, for example, you match 2 of them because we don't have time for both anyway nowadays. So just do both together. If you're running outside, I feel that is the single most important useful thing. Not just for physical health, but mental health as well. And you will feel like a brand new person. You know, I feel like nature has healing powers. So it takes all your problems and it kind of like just keeps them there. And then you come home and you're like, you know what, I can do anything now.
I can do anything.
And I think this has been proven by the studies too. There's a forest therapy. So one last question before we wind up, Dr. Rubia. How do you deal with that mom guilt? Because there are a lot of young women who are working out there. It's imperative that we work. Unless you don't do that, you know, you cannot have a healthy
That's
lifestyle.
a great question. My wife was having this discussion with me the other day. Please.
So Hajra knows this. I talk about this endlessly because I suffer from this endlessly. If I have to come here in the morning and I can't do the school run, I'm like upset. Oh, you know, I'm feeling guilty. More than maybe it's a bit of a relief, to be honest, to be not doing something for one part of a day. But equally, it's always like, oh, I let them down. And kids kind of like need parents. Kids need some different things from dad and different things from mom. And mom is that nurturer, the one that who will kind of like console them, will hold them. So that is a real thing. It never goes away. Sadly. So I'm 41 and it's still not gone away. But it gets better with time. You get better at sort of like managing your time, and you get better at finding like a zen with your children. So like for example, in my case, I spend more time with them on the weekend. It's not overcompensating, guys. Stop trying to, you know, rationalize everything. If you're just spending time with them on the weekend, that's absolutely fine. They're also busy on weekdays.
True. Thank you so much for shedding light on a very essential and important aspect of our very busy routines, lifestyles that we have adapted to the 21st century, and obviously how to navigate the very complex modern marriages and relationships. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Rubia, for coming here, for having this social discussion. We're going on a short break, and after we come back, we have interesting discussion lined up. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Welcome back, and as all the exciting things that we've been discussing in today's episode, next up is a very interesting news. It's about the lunar bricks that are going to be made, and this This news is a really exciting one, where astronauts will be sent to Moon to construct bricks in order to construct the lunar space station, and this is going to be conducted by China. This space race is full of swing again. And the possible remarks a host could make was that it's very expensive to carry out material from Earth to outer space. Every gram counts aboard the spacecraft. If we can find construction material on site, that is the Moon, a lunar post can be made actually, and it can become a reality.
Right, and thank you so much for shedding light on that. And now we are going to talk about something which is a very cultural specific. So there is a society called Asian Study Group. What is it about? I'm very glad that we have been joined by Miss Perveen Malik. She happens to be the president of the ASG. Assalamu alaikum, Ms. Malik, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Alaikum, no, welcome. Thank you very much for having me here.
So please do shed some light on what are the activities of the Asian Study Group, why it was designed, and I was watching that there's some very interesting events lined up, you know, for example, cuisines related to the Bohra community. Please go ahead.
Acha, basically, Asian Study Group is a voluntary organization. All right, we have 25 people on the committee, and they're all professionals, and they give their time to create the programs. And there are 17 subgroups which go from adventure club to film club to wildlife, name it, and it's there. And we have a newsletter that goes out every month to all the members. It's basically by membership. And so it covers practically everything. We've been here since 1973. Started by a diplomat's wife. They're the ones who are always interested in start these things. And then when I joined in the 80s, I realized that there are no Pakistanis except for Ishrat Hayat, who used to be a journalist. And then we decided, you know, we have to sort of encourage Pakistanis to join. So now it's actually works very well in the sense that it's a platform for both the locals as well as the foreigners. And we provide activities. You mentioned Bohra cuisine. We have a cuisine program every month.
Wonderful.
And they do all sorts of things, you know, and we also incorporate embassies. You know, basically the focus is on South Asian countries and Pakistan, you know, to project Pakistan positively. So we tap countries, South Asian countries, to introduce their culture, traditions, arts, crafts. So that's how it works.
Right. So, Ms. Malik, I've seen that generally there is a lot of interest of the Westerners to explore the Asian societies, right? And the focus is a lot on the exoticness, right? The exotic food, exotic culture, and all of these things. So, you know, how does Asia Study Group come into this equation of exploring the exotic culture of Islamabad or Pakistan in general?
Acha, I don't know whether exotic is the right word. I think
indigenous, right? For Westerners, I think it is
basically,
exotic.
you know, what happens is that whenever a foreigner goes into a new country, it's like us when we, as Pakistanis, for example, go anywhere, Thailand, America, anywhere, you know, you become a tourist. So basically, these people come for a year, 2 years maximum, and they want to make the most of it. And they want to travel a lot. So our programs to the north are very, very popular because they love the north, you know, Hunza or Yevo. And we have a lot of trips also actually in and around Islamabad. For example, in November, we are taking them to Taxila, the ruins over there. Then you mentioned Bohra cuisine, then there are hikes, then there are films. So basically, you introduce them slowly and subtly to your own culture. And you also get exposed to their culture. So in that context, you know, basically, I think I'm a tourist also, frankly, you know. I mean, joining the ASG, I've discovered so much about Pakistan. And a lot of Pakistani Islamabadites had no clue that Islamabad, you know, Taxila is next to Islamabad. And, you know, it's so strange. I had a meeting with the Danish ambassador the other day, and he had a person like you, youngster, and we started talking about the rose and jasmine garden. And at one time, you know, Islamabad used to be very different. It used to be the passageway to Kabul, etc., etc. And all the hippies used to come to the rose and jasmine garden and settle themselves over there. You know, he had no idea about the rose and jasmine garden or Shakarpariyan for that matter. So, you know, for me it was really a shock.
Really?
Yeah, you'd be surprised that a lot of youngsters actually are quite oblivious about where they are staying, which is a tragedy actually. So the whole purpose is to introduce everybody to what Pakistan is all about.
This is bringing such a fresh vibe to everything. I mean, you talk about Islamabad, people living in Islamabad not knowing about Islamabad, people of the town not knowing about the town.
Really?
When you talked about the cross-cultural contacts and how you bring cultures together, how you bring people to the culture and how you take the culture to the people, what is your most memorable memory here at the ASG?
Listen, I've been with the ASG for so long and there are so many memories, but I'll talk about, discuss with you about the most recent program that we've had, which was organized by Yugan Studios.
Right.
And that was on Islamabad itself, past, present and future. And the topic was Islamabad 2060.
Right.
So there was a lot of nostalgia. They showed a documentary and they interviewed a lot of people, including me, who've lived here since 1966. I've been here since 1966.
Wonderful. Right.
So basically it traced what Islamabad used to be like and what it is like right now and what you can envisage it in the future if the planning goes on as it is now.
Right.
So that actually is very memorable for me.
Is it a scary future?
Well, the way it's going, it's very scary, to be very honest. I mean, Islamabad used to be a quiet, peaceful, very cozy, very intimate sort of a place and a very safe place.
True.
And right now you read the newspapers and there's crime going on and, robberies going on and this, that and the other, so that's very sad.
So talking about the hippie era where you mentioned that this was a passageway to Kabul and the Rose and Jasmine Garden and the hippies would come and settle themselves there. Have you had any visitors from that time who came back to see Pakistan in the now?
Not really, but a lot of diplomats who used to be here have come back on higher postings. For example, if they were first secretaries, now they've come back as ambassadors. So for them also, I mean, they find a radical change also, from Islamabad when they first served there. And no, I haven't met any. I didn't make any personal friendships, but it used to be quite interesting, because we were very young also at that time. And what used to happen was, Apara market, they used to go eat over there and basically, I don't know whether I should say this on TV or not, but there was charas at that point.
Of course, that's
so
the time we're talking about.
So they'd all sort of be lying on the charpais over there, sort of very happy with life, and then they would go off to Kabul. So it was a very interesting, very open time at that time. There were fewer restrictions, security issues were not there. So it was a different world altogether.
And ASG is promoting a softer image of Pakistan worldwide, taking all of these things into account now.
Yeah,
it's working.
We are really trying very, very hard, and sort of trying to introduce all sorts of topics and sort of present Pakistan in a positive way.
Does ASG also conduct programs where poetry and literature and these things are propagated?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We had a literature program just now where there were young poets, Pakistani poets, who came and read their poetry, etc. So that was very good. Now in November we've got Amber Khairi. She's a very well-known journalist and writer. She's written a book called Akbar in Pakistan or something like that. Akbar, that's what it's called. And Akbar in Wonderland, sorry, not Akbar, like Alice in Wonderland, Akbar in Wonderland.
Right.
So we have her literature program.
Right.
I'll send you a newsletter. You'll enjoy that.
Right. Thank you so much for coming here, Ms. Malik, and for shedding light on the Islamabad that used to be and that we used to reminiscence about it, and the Islamabad that we aspire to be in the coming days. Thanks you once again for highlighting that. And with that, we are wrapping up our program. Until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning,
Pakistan.